as well tech 2. And since I have raiders, I can always ensnare, and they'll be afraid to push me because they don't have a counter to ensnare, which is pretty much the basis of this matchup. Counter ensnare. OMG, it's not so hard, really. I mean, all you have to do is find one counter, and ba-bam, it's over. So, Grubby's forced to TP. Kind of a bad news all around for the Orc player. But it seems like Remind is going to do some ownage. One thing to note is that if they have really nice burrow placement or building placement, you really don't want to push into their base because they can just ensnare and focus crap, and you won't have enough talons out front dealing damage to the burrows, and you'll just get a whole bunch of crap screwed over. If you want an example of this, it is in the Trying to Stand game, their game 3. Oh, he calls GG. I didn't really commentate on that last battle because it was just going to end up being rape, especially because he kind of trapped his heroes behind his burrows, if you didn't notice that. So anyways, as I was saying, if you want a good example of Orc building placement against the Talons, the Trying to Stand map, or game 3 of that matchup, is a pretty sweet example. It's pretty much, the Talons get at the entrances, and they can only get like 2 or 3 in there doing damage, along with the hero and the Quill Beast and the Beastmaster, and it just kind of ends up being bad news. So, general micro tips, Cyclone, the Tauren Chieftain, and the Blade Master as much as possible, because you are going to have a smallish army, since you're only going up to 50 food, but you do have a lot of units. Which means Blade Master can gain so much more experience by doing 1 or 2 critical strikes, because it's so much easier to kill a Talon as opposed to a bear with a Blade Master. So that's one thing to be a little afraid of, is, the Blade Master and the Tauren Chieftain just for the shockwave. Since, you have a counter to that with your healing scroll, you should be okay anyways. Other micro tips. Good thing to take out first is always the Grunts, just because they take out your Pocket Factory, which is a kick-ass counter to the Raiders. And counter to Raiders, pretty much your heroes are the basic counter until you have Cyclone, which then you can send them into the air, and it's not like, if you're being, swirled around like that movie, The Wizard of Oz, and that little chick who ends up going to some place and she's like on drugs or something and everything's yellow brick road and crap, you're not going to be tossing nets at little old guys. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is general psychology really comes in handy when playing Warcraft 3. So, Cyclone a whole bunch of the Raiders. Generally just don't Cyclone too much at one time. You really only want like 3 or 4 going, because one Dispel will just get rid of it all. Especially because all your crap gets clumped up anyways. So, focus down the Grunts first, just because they die so quickly anyways, you're not going to lose much doing it. And then focus down the Raiders next, and that just allows you to run away, and you won't ever have to waste a TP that way, if you're smart about it. So, yeah, as you did notice, Remind didn't have to TP. So, that's a good thing to pay attention to. But yes, as I was saying, as Orc, the thing that I do is I go tier 3 and get a Dark Ranger, and then I do kind of a different combo, though. I go with, what is that? I do kind of a Raider and Shaman combo. Sometimes I do a Mass Air, but generally I do Raider and Shaman, or Shaman, I don't really care how you pronounce it. But, yeah, really that's what I do. I go tier 3, and then I get a Dark Ranger and mix in a couple demos, and then it pretty much destroys people, because they're like, I can't cast Cyclone, I don't have to spell, and it just kind of hurts in the end. As Night Elf, the real counter to that is just bringing a Wisp with you and detonating, but generally what I do is I get my Dark Ranger, and I kind of hide him. Her, sorry. She's kind of butch anyways, I might as well call him a him. Her a him. God, my head hurts. So, yeah, I'm confusing myself with my own logic here. But yeah, I pick up the Dark Ranger, pick Silence first, and then head over to the, the Goblin Merchant, and pick up an invisibility potion, kind of creep up a little bit with my other heroes, if they're not pressuring me, and then I kind of push their base, and start doing some demo raider damage. I usually get some pillage going, some nice building killing action, especially with a little lucrative side to it. And then they TP in, you cast silence, and they won't be able to cast, their little cyclones, and generally they'll clump together anyways. So you just kind of demo them to the death, and a little lightning shield action never hurt anyone. Of course, you have Purge for the summons. All you really have to do is focus your Blade Master on the Pocket Factory, and you're good to go. But one thing you don't want to do is stall too much at Tier 2. What I generally do is I do an 8-peon build, and then tech to Tier 2, and then at Tier 2 I can set up my Bestiary and my Spirit Lodge, and then tech to Tier 3. And generally I should be able to get a Shaman, and then my Raider with Ensnare. And then when I hit Tier 3, I can actually upgrade my Shaman, maybe get a couple Demolishers, and do a nice little combo that way. But yeah, as a Night Elf, always have Fairy Dragons with you, and always have 2. If you have 1, they can really do this gay crap, which is called, Ensnare, Speed Scroll away, and then, maybe Dispel if you've cycloned one of their Raiders, and then you've lost your Mana Flare. So, that's one thing to pay attention to. Also, you might be a little worried about things called Bat Riders. Bat Riders are kind of a pain in the ass if you have any kind of flying crap in the air. So if you do have a Fairy Dragon, just watch out for the Bat Rider. And if you see one, just kind of retreat your Fairy Dragons, or you can put them into Mana Flare, and before they die, just kind of staff them out. But yeah, other than that, if you just kind of retreat them a little bit, they're not going to go Ensnare Concoction, because they can't, and all you really have to do is focus down the Bat Rider as it kind of flies over you. So, stuff like that is always good. As an Orc player, sometimes I do a mass air strategy, I did mention that, and what I generally do is do a 2 Bestiary thing, and I just kind of creep a whole bunch with I usually go Farseer and Tauren Chieftain, and then I just kind of do a whole bunch of creeping there. I don't really do any harassment, and they go WTF mate, and then, you send your 4 Wind Riders, and you kind of do 1 volley on each Wisp, and then they can't even get the Master Training because they spent so much wood building talons and upgrading and building their winds, and you've killed all their Wisps. So, I don't know, that's one thing that I do. I especially like to do it because generally they're mid-tech by the time I start killing Wisps, so they can't even replace them, and they really have to hit Tier 3, otherwise it's kind of pointless, and then they go, OMG, he's going as Wind Riders, and then they put them into Talon form, and, then they find out you're hiding a couple Bat Riders. I generally go, 4 or 5 Wind Riders, and then the rest Bat Riders, and then, they kind of fly them in the air, and they go, OMG Wind Riders, and you go, OMG Bat Riders, and it's all over. Especially if you've already shockwaved them once, because, 1 concoction will take out, 3 talents, which is super good stuff. I'm going to stop right now, so I can spare you guys your lives, I guess. So, thanks for listening, and Orange says don't do drugs. Alright, peace out.